There was a man who imagined how technology may alter the world more than 500 years ago. He then set out to completely upset the world, and he succeeded in doing so. In addition to establishing a basic theory of plate tectonics, he proposed the idea of flying machines, an armored war vehicle, concentrated solar power, an adding machine, and the double hull. But by today's standards, this individual was neither a geek nor a nerd. He studied philosophy, physiology, and the humanities in addition to being an artist. Without a grasp of human nature, he was aware that science was nothing more than meaningless pastime. The Last Supper and the Monalisa were painted by Leonardo da Vinci, who was centuries ahead of his time in demonstrating that technology pursued for its own sake will only pass the time rather than bring out the best in people. I admire people who are able to maintain a grin under pressure, find courage in adversity, and develop bravery through introspection. Small brains tend to shrink, but those with strong hearts and morally upright conduct will stick to their convictions until the bitter end. Time continues for as long as anyone wants to use it. The height of sophistication is simplicity. The intellect never gets tired from learning. The student who falls short of his master is poor. People of success hardly just sat back and let things happen to them. It had long since become clear to me. They left and made things happen. The necessity of the action has impressed me. We must put our knowledge into practice. Knowledge alone is insufficient. We need to act. Simply being willing is insufficient. Understanding joy is the highest form of pleasure. Experience is always accurate. It is only your judgments that are incorrect because they promise yourselves outcomes that are not the result of your experiments. Our perceptions are the starting point of all of our information. Despite the fact that reason comes first in nature and experience comes last, we must start with experience and then move on to explore reason. There are 4 powers: intelligence, desire, covetousness, and memory. While the rest are sensual, the first 2 are mental. Touch and taste can be avoided, but not the 3 senses of sight, hearing, and scent. In the same way that eating without hunger is a tedious nourishment, studying without zeal harms the memory by preventing it from assimilation what is learned. With the exception of the written word, which is its mechanical component, all information that ends in words will vanish as fast as it appeared. The main food source for great intellects is reality. Life well lived is a long one. The ability to judge what is presented to us by our other senses is known as common sense. The decoration and nourishment of the human intellect is knowledge of the past and the locations of the planet. Like a happy day comes a happy sleep. A happy life gives a happy death. Men of great talent are most active when they are working the least amount of hours. Poetry is painting that is felt instead of seen, and painting is poetry that is felt instead of seen. Once you've experienced flight, you'll always walk the ground with your eyes focused above because that's where you've gone and where you'll always wish to go back. A memory that isn't motivated to learn loses everything it learns. People of accomplishment rarely just sat back and let things happen to them. As I had long since observed, they ventured outside and made things happen. In the painter's hands and mind is the entire universe. I have avoided eating meat since I was a young child, and the day will come when people like me will view the killing of animals with the same disdain that they do the killing of humans. Except for the tongue and the genitalia, muscles only pull. They do not push. The building blocks of a complete mind look into the physics of art. Discover the science of art. Learn to see, in particular, and develop your other senses. Become aware of how everything is interconnected. The necessity of the action has impressed me. We must put our knowledge into practice. Knowledge alone is insufficient. We need to act. Simply being willing is insufficient. Starting out strong against temptation makes it simpler to resist later on. Studying the science of art is one of the tenets for the development of a complete mind. Learn about the science of art, develop your senses, and learn to perceive in particular. Recognize that everything is interconnected. Similar to how inactivity depletes mental vitality, iron rusts from disuse, stagnant water loses its purity, and frozen water does the same when it's cold outside. When there is nothing more to add or take away from a poet knows he has reached perfection. All sciences that are not based on experience, the source of all knowledge, are false and full of errors. When you touch water in a river, it contains the end of what has gone before and the first of what is to come. Why does the imagination function more clearly when you're awake than when you're asleep? Marriage is like sticking your hand into a bag of snakes in the hopes of pulling out an eel. The acquisition of knowledge is always useful to the intellect because it can then drive out useless things and retain the good. Art is the queen of all sciences because it communicates knowledge to all generations of the world. Since nothing can be loved or loathed without first being known, the truth can never be hid. Dissimulation is useless. Dissimulation is useless in front of such a powerful judge. Falsehood dons a disguise. Nothing beneath the sun is a secret. Everybody who conducts an argument by appealing to authority is not using his intelligence. Instead, he is just using his memory. Details make perfection, and perfection is not a detail. As every divided kingdom falls, so does every mind divided between many studies confound and sap itself. The painter will produce pictures of little merit if he uses the works of others as his standard. If you find something from the past that you believe to be true, you should believe it. If you find something that you believe to be false, you should. He who wishes to be rich within a day will be hanged within a year.